While the US draws up plans against the extremist group, its close ally Britain appears to have been contributing significantly to Islamic State's growing number of fighters. Now, 600 Britons have so far been recruited by the jihadists, and that number is increasing. At least 60 women have gone to Syria, where they're forming a so-called armed Sharia brigade. The majority are aged between 18 and 24, are well-educated and come from middle-class families. But now they're spreading hate as part of the ruthless movement. One female jihadist recently tweeted how she wants the British Prime Minister's head on a spike. Let's go live to London and speak to investigative journalist Shiv Malik, who's also the co-author of Jilted Generation: How Britain Has Bankrupted Its Youth. Thank you very much for joining us here on RT International. Can you just explain to us, first of all, how young British citizens are being radicalised to such an extent?
Yes, I mean, there are two ways. The first way, which has sort of been new in the last sort of couple of years, has been online radicalisation. So what we've seen is, I mean, just last weekend, in fact, there was a big online conference held over on a service called Paltalk, in which 4 radicals, 3 previously convicted preachers, held sort of 3-4 hour-long talk for 200 people. So there's stuff that's going on online through Twitter, through social media, and through various other forms and platforms. But there's also what we've seen is a return back to using mosques, not the imams of mosques and not the mosques themselves per se, but mosques as social centres. And around the peripheries of that, we've seen people, again, hanging out, helping to perhaps facilitate young people who are wanting to go to Syria and Iraq, but also, in some senses, also recruiting them, which is a step up, obviously, from simply facilitation.
How difficult is this logistically for the British government to deal with? I mean, if they take a military approach, they're going to be effectively a military campaign against some of their own citizens.
Yes, and we've seen this obviously before in Afghanistan. Obviously, ex-members of a group called Al-Muhajirun, which is now proscribed, they were fighting out in Afghanistan. I don't think, in some senses, since we've done it before, it's not going to be much of a problem. And I think actually what we've seen over the last 10 years is that the mainstream Islamic community here, the Muslim community here, has actually gotten behind many of the agendas of both the government and the wider community at large to stop and get involved in stopping radicals within their own communities. So I think they'd very much be behind any moves, perhaps military moves in Syria and Iraq. But it's unlikely that there'll be any face-to-face sort of combat, and whether that would cause any further problems, I don't know. What I do know is also that radicals here would obviously use that as a platform to say, look, this is again another war on Muslims. But as we've seen, these groups out in Syria, especially IS, have been killing far more Muslims in the last couple of years than radicals care to admit to themselves.
How do you see this playing out then? Because President Obama says he's not looking for a ground invasion. Do you believe that? And how can he avoid boots on the ground?
So I think he can avoid boots on the ground to an extent, as in any sense of him deploying a US conventional force to actually go head-to-head with ISIS. That's not going to happen. There will obviously be backup support in that sense. There are already US troops in Iraq, obviously, currently now helping and guiding the forces that are already there, the Peshmerga forces from the Kurds, and also the Shia forces. The problem with that is going to be really, and I think they'll use those two groups to provide, if you want, the troops while they are providing the air support, and that operation will simply ramp up. The problem with that is going to be, obviously, then you end up, some of our reporters, I work for The Guardian, some of our reporters there have reported on the fact that the Shia brigades are themselves just as fervent when it comes to committing atrocities and the like. And that's very worrying, because if the US is going to lend their support to those forces, then are we going to see in a few years' time then Shia militias again being a serious problem in Iraq?
Shiv Malik, thank you very much. Unfortunately, time is against us. Shiv Malik, investigative journalist and the co-author of Jilted Generation: How Britain Has Bankrupted Its Youth. Thank you for joining us here on RT International.
Thank you very much. Thank you.